So I'm trying to make my Minecraft hardcore world my best ever world. That means making insane bases and making everything look great. My entire goal for this world is to have it be the world that I play in for forever. So let's start working on my first ever hardcore mega base. Now you guys won't see it, but if you watched the last video, you will know I built a small house on a mountain. Well, off camera, I mined about 60,000 blocks of dirt and placed them down so that I had a completely custom mountain to build on. So now, it's actually time to work on this insane build. All right, so we just finished the mountain and now I'm gonna be working on the wall around the basically mega base that we're gonna build a castle and multiple different houses inside of it. So we got the netherrack all laid down and I should have most of the resources right here in order to build the wall. So yeah, we're gonna get working on the wall. All right, since now that we got all the netherrack placed around the base in order to start building the wall and the little miniature towers, I came up with this wall design. I think it looks pretty good. It has some texture, it has a lot of different materials, and I think it looks pretty cool. And so now the process of building this around the rest of the base. Okay, I actually like the look of that a lot. Like, I'm not gonna lie, that actually looks pretty freaking good. Yeah, I have an idea. This one is a lot better. That's a lot better. I feel like that's a lot better. Now that I know what I was gonna do for the rest of the majority of the wall, because obviously I'm gonna do that thing for the rest of the wall, it was now time to figure out what I was gonna do for the towers. I have around 8 towers around the entire mountain. So now I was figuring out what actually looks good. I actually ended up going with a diorite and andesite kind of theme for this build with more spruce as well. And so I'm just going to show you the building process of this. And since this was basically like the test subject for the rest of the towers, it took a lot of going back and forth throughout many different like textures and styles in order to actually figure out what I wanted to do for the build. But once I started getting the base down, the top was relatively easy because I was just making it out of mainly spruce and cobblestone. Because once again, it's going to be all themed like medieval, kind of like older medieval, but still clean looking, if that makes sense. And then I went right back to making more walls. All right, so I just spent 1 whole hour working on this entire wall, and there's one of the first towers that we made. That's gonna be a little bit nicer than the wall, but yeah, this is 1 hour done. We're about like 1/7 of the way done. And then once we get the wall done, we're gonna work on the walkway and we're gonna redo the back of the wall so that it actually looks nice. All right, so we just finished the first tower. Don't ask about the second tower. It will be built later and hit later. And then most of the wall. So now we're gonna continue working on this later. All right, so we just finished the second tower of the wall. And now we're working on building all of the towers at one time so that when I do build all the towers, I can then focus on all of the walls because the walls are gonna take the longest part. Now, after I got the second tower done, it was just now focusing on all the towers, getting them all done at first so I could do the walls. Because once again, the walls were going to take me the longest because it was around the whole entire area. But for the towers, all I had to do was really copy and paste the towers from one place to the next. So what I did, I just ended up spending all my time working on making the towers, building them all from the ground up to the top, all in a row and all at the same time, so I remembered every single thing about them. I also had to go grab a bunch of resources throughout this whole process, which took forever because I had to mine a lot of spruce wood, get a bunch of other andesite and other stuff like that. So it took a very, very long time, but just to shorten it down, this is basically 8 hours of footage into this little area just so we can get these towers out of the way. I started by placing all the pillars around each tower. Then I would build from the ground up. So I'd build all the floor, put all the ladders down, get to the second layer, place all the flooring down. Then I would start building all the way up to the very top of the tower and I would finish them all off just with that little spruce and putting those little walls of stone on top of the towers to give it a little extra texture and make them look nicer than they actually are. And I just had to repeat this process about 8 to 9 times. There we go, chat. Holy shit, that looks insane. That looks so cool. All right, so the building process of the towers actually took a lot longer than I expected. It took about 2 to 3 streams, which is usually 2 to 6 hours total of streaming, in order to actually finish the tops of the towers. The tops of the towers were the trickiest parts because there's a lot of different like spruce things and stuff like that. I also had to grab a bunch more supplies during this whole process, which took the longest. I thought I was having enough supplies at the very start of the build, but obviously I did not. And it was my goal to get these towers done as soon as possible so I could finish this entire wall and actually start working on the centerpiece of this build, which is the actual mega base part of this build. All right, so we just finished all the towers around the base, and now we're gonna work on finishing the rest of the wall. So let's get right into it. And now I have to repeat this process about 400 more times to get the entire wall done. So enjoy this speed run. All right, so we just finished another section of the wall, and we're about halfway done. As you guys can see, we're about halfway done with the entire wall and towers, and then we can start working on the castle in the center. All right, so once again, we just finished all of the towers, and now we're working on finishing the wall, and I just completed this little area right here, and now onto the rest. All right, so we got all the wood placed down for the entire wall. Now I just have to do these 2 last sections, and I'll be done with the wall. So I got to place down the stairs, the slabs, and then obviously the trapdoors, and I am done with the wall and all the towers. I just finished the whole entire wall, and now it's time to work on the pathway, the mega castle in the middle of the base, and then a bunch of tiny little houses around the castle. So we just finished the wall. Yeah, it looks insane. Now, since I just finished all of the walls, the next goal was getting all the resources for the centerpiece, the castle, and the pathways, and then some of the little houses around the castle. So what I decided to do was go mine for like a solid 2 to 3 hours, and I just literally sat in a mine grabbing as much resources as possible, because once again, if you didn't see, I lost a lot of resources building the walls and the towers, and I obviously needed more resources that entire time, and I had to keep going back and forth, which took absolutely forever. So why not get it done at the very start of the game before waiting until I need the resources and having to go grab them again. So once again, the theme for this is medieval. It's more of like a centerpiece that has walls and towers on it, and then a castle at the back of it with little shops inside, but you will obviously see that at the end. So we're gonna skip this whole mining process and just get right into building the castle. But you know me, instead of going and building the castle right away, we had to go take a little detour. So what I actually did was I went into the nether to go fight skeletons to get a beacon, and then after that I had to go heal all of my tools up. So since I have mending on the tools, I had to go grab a bunch of XP for my XP farm in the end, which took a while to get to. And then I just did a bunch of other stuff like grabbing spruce wood and other stuff, and then just chilling at my base. And you can't forget about the legendary fight I had with the Wither. This fight literally lasted like 5 seconds. I don't know what they did, but the Java Wither is the easiest boss in the entire game. I swear it takes like 3 hits from my sword and my bow just to kill the boy. If this was a Bedrock Wither, I would be fighting this thing longer than I fought the dragon. And as you guys all know, my fight with the Ender Dragon was pretty horrible. I missed like 600 shots with my bow. So yeah, this fight was relatively easy. Now right here is when I started to remove everything from the old house that we made in the last video. Yes, this house has a lot of memories and it saved me when I needed it, but once again, it needs to go in order to build the castle. So here are just some short clips of me breaking down the house so we can remember this house in the very, very end. And thank you once again to this house for being my main house in my first hardcore game. All right, so we just got a bunch of resources to start building the big castle in the center with another wall around it. We're gonna actually have to extend this part out a little bit, but we'll do that after we start building the main project. The first thing I gotta do though, before I do all that, is I've got to get rid of all this big center dirt area. So that's what I'm going to be working on for the next little bit. All right, so we finally just got rid of all of the dirt and all the other like stone and stuff that was in the ground, and we just replaced it all with dirt. And now all we got to do is actually build the build. All right, so as you guys can see, I'm actually extending the mountain outwards. I kind of had a slight mishap when trying to put the build that I've been working on in creative in my area. So the problem is this side is a lot more closed off and smaller than the side all the way over here. As you guys can see, the build is basically touching this side, and I want this area to be like markets and like a streetway. And as you guys can see, this is way more open, and I can't rotate the build at all to like be like fit perfectly in here. So I've actually decided that I'm going to extend this part of the mountain outwards and over, and then I will actually start working on the mega base after I do that. All right, so since I don't want to have to do all the walls again and the whole entire tower, or like the little towers around it, this is what I'm going to be doing. I'm just going to be extending it out that way. So it's more of like a symmetrical type of like mountain, and then I can place the thing in the center. And once again, maybe not this video, but the next video, I'll terraform off all the sides because I want to save that for later. I just want to get all of the inside done so I can actually start putting stuff inside the mega base because it's going to look insane. All right, so we just finished all of the little shops inside the main area. All we have to do now is finish all of the pillars, the very tops, and then add the little things in there and possibly add windows, and we're good. Well, we just finished the first pillar. Now we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those 4 should be easier. This one's gonna take forever. But yeah, then we are almost done. All right, so we got all 4 of these towers done. If you guys can see, there's a little bit of like change and stuff, but I'll fix those once I can actually take the Litematica off. But we finished both those towers, and now all we have to do is those 2 towers, add the pathway, and that is about it. I'm not sure if we're gonna go super in detail on this build, as I'm not gonna be living near this build anymore because I will be moving. But the next thing after that is obviously building the wall and like 1 or 2 more towers in this area. So that's what we're going to work on next after we finish these towers. All right, so we just cut out the pathway, and now we are going to say goodbye to the schematic because I can do the rest from here. I just needed it for the pillars and everything else, but the rest is now doable by itself, and I got to finish that wall around the whole entire base. Sigma, Sigma, boy. All right, so we just built the rest of the towers around the thing. Now all we have to do is build the rest of the wall around this, add the pathways in, and we are done with this mega base build, and then we can move on to our next build. All right, so we just finished the whole wall and all of the towers around the base. So the next thing we got to do is we're going to make all the pathways throughout the base and then around this whole area, and then we are done with the mega base. Alright, so it's been a little bit since I last recorded, and that's because I got a brand new PC, but as you guys can see, we actually did finish the pathway inside this area, and I said I was going to move away, but I've decided not to, so I've started working on the path around the outside of the mega base, and in all honesty, I think we're gonna just finish the path and call it good, and as I get more villagers breeded and everything, we can make little houses around the outside, because in the last couple recordings, half of my villagers died, and I had to completely restart my villagers. So as you can see in here, we have barely any villagers anymore with no jobs. So we're gonna have to redo all of this. And that's why I'm holding off on doing all the little houses on the outside. But once we do get this whole pathway done, this mega base is going to be basically complete. So we're going to get right into mining the rest of this for the mega base. The one little sucky part about half of this area back here is I didn't fill in this little corner over here in with dirt. And over all the way on the far side, that's not filled in either. So we're going to have to completely go through this whole back area without basically mining or being able to place blocks as we mine, if that makes sense. All right, so we basically mined out a rough draft, and now we're going to put a little layer of grass below it like this. And then we're going to start building the rest of the pathway. And I don't know if we're going to be able to even build that many houses along the side because there's not a lot of space. We'll be able to put some over here and possibly some over there, but that will be for a later video. All right, so we just got done with the rest of building underneath the pathway, and we are now going to start working on it. However, I got to fill in some parts so that it looks more even going the whole way across. All right, now that everything is placed below, now I can just start spamming random blocks and fill it all the way in, all the way around. All right, and we just finished the entire pathway. As you guys can see, it goes all the way around the build. Now it's not super even, but it looks like a medieval themed type of walkway. And now whenever I want to, I can build little houses, little huts, or more little markets like these around and put the villagers in them. And then also I can finish this monstrosity and hopefully get this done in the next video. Next video is going to be just about farms, so make sure you guys like and subscribe. Comment down below what I should add to this mega base or what mega base I should build in the future. And once again, this is my first ever mega base I've ever built in Minecraft whatsoever, so I think I did pretty darn good. Let me down below once again. Let's try and get 200 likes on this video. And once again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace, guys.